What's up everybody, welcome back. So instead of improving our lobby menu a bit like I mentioned in the last episode, first I want to add some gameplay elements. So in this episode we're going to add weapon pickups, and it's going to be pretty similar to the inventory pickups that I'm creating in the multiplayer inventory system. So if you actually follow that series and you're implementing that into this project, then you will see some stuff that you don't have to recreate, like we're going to use the same interface and we're going to use the same structure. So you will see some familiar stuff, and if that's the case you do not have to recreate it, you can simply use the ones from the inventory system. So that's what we're going to do today. If you like the channel, please consider leaving a like, it helps the channel tremendously. And you can also leave a small donation on my Ko-fi page, or you can become a member of the channel if you want to support what I'm doing. All of those things will be greatly appreciated, and you're also welcome to join the Discord and talk about some game dev stuff, or show off a project that you made, or maybe ask a question about a video. So let's dive into today's video and start making some weapon pickups. So let's start by creating the new interface that we're going to use to interact with pretty much everything in our levels. So if you already have the interface from the inventory project, you don't have to create it, but we are going to add a few new things to it. So first of all, let's create one, and that's going to be our BPI interactable actor. And let's set this up. So the first function is going to be interact with actor. And we're going to give this one input, and that's our player character. So that's of the type hero base. No, hero base character. And then we're going to continue with the second function, and that's going to be get interact hint text. So get interact hint text. And for this one we actually need two outputs. So let's add one, and that's going to be the hint text. So that's a text variable. And then we're also going to add a boolean, and that's called show interactable hint. Show interactable hint. So turn that one into a boolean, and that's the second function good to go as well. The third one is going to be set item name visibility. So let's add a third function, set item name visibility. This one needs one input, so we're going to give one input a boolean, and that's going to be new visibility. And the last function we're going to add, and that's a new one if you are already using the interface from the inventory project. So, we're going to call this is auto pickup. So add a new function, is auto pickup. And this one needs one output, and that's going to be a boolean, and we're going to call that is auto pickup. So if you had the interface already, this is a new function, and for the get interactable hint text we have two outputs now, so we added a boolean in here. So we're gonna compile and save, and first of all let's dive into our project settings, because we need to set up some stuff in here as well. So let's go to the input, and we're going to create a new action mapping for interacting with actors. So let's call this interact. And I'm going to use the F key, but whatever you prefer, it doesn't really matter. So the F key on my keyboard. And then we also want to go into the collision tab, and we're going to add a new object channel, and that's going to be a pickup item. So again, if you follow the inventory series, you already have this, so no need to add it again. Then we're going to go to the presets, and we're going to create a new preset, and let's call this pickup item profile, or let's just call it pickup profile, that works. For the collision we're going to set query enabled. Object type is going to be our new pickup item. And then for the description, let's make this something like a trigger for interactables. And that should be good to go. So we're going to set everything to overlap, and then for all traces we're going to set those to ignore, and that should work fine. So we can accept it, and that's good to go as well. So with those things in place, let's go into our character. So let's open the base character. And in here, I'm going to add one new component, and that's going to be to detect the pickups around us so we can display names above them if we want to. So let's add one to the root component. So add a sphere collision. And I'm going to call this my interactable detection sphere. Interactable detection sphere. So let's lower it a bit so it's more at feet height, and then I'm gonna increase the radius. Something about 200 should do, but you can play around with it, whatever you prefer. Then we need to go into the collision settings. So if we scroll down, and over here for the collision we want to turn this into custom. So query only, that's fine. Object type world dynamic, that's fine as well. And we're going to simply ignore everything except for the pickup item all the way at the bottom. We're going to set that one to overlap. And now this should be good to go as well. Then we want to go to our character mesh. And for the character mesh, we want to go to the collision and make sure that we generate overlap events. So let's enable this tick box. And then we can go into the event graph and start setting some things up. So I'm going to grab my notes quickly. So first of all, let's go to event begin play. And over there, we're going to do something to our detection sphere. So as I mentioned, we're going to use this detection sphere to detect pickups in the level. And if we want to, we can display names above them. So that's going to be a widget displaying the names. So we only need that on our local player and local player controller. So we also only need this detection sphere on our local player. So what we can do if we go to event begin play, we have a branch over here is locally controlled. So if this is false, I'm simply going to drag in my interactable detection sphere component and destroy it. So that way only our local character will actually have this detection sphere, and that way we know if it's triggered, it's automatically on the local character because he's the only one that has one. So that will make our lives a little bit easier. So with this in place, we can start setting up some overlap events. So first of all, let's do the trigger overlaps. So that's the detection sphere. And scroll all the way down. Over here we can add begin overlap, and let's grab end overlap right away. So for this, as I mentioned, we just determined that we are local if this trigger executes, so no need to check anything there. Then we want to grab the other actor and we're going to say does implement interface, and we're going to check for our BPI interactable actor interface. So let's grab a branch here and plug everything in. So if this is actually an interactable actor, then we're going to call an interface function on that actor. So let's drag off the other actor again, and we can simply call our set item name visibility. So that's the interface function that we created. Plug it in and make sure we set the new visibility to true. So that's all we need to do in here, and then we can pretty much copy all of this stuff and paste it for the end overlap. And in this case we want to hide our item name, so make sure that we disable the visibility over here and we plug in the other actor. And now that should already work. Then we're going to go to the overlap events for our character mesh. So let's grab the character mesh, scroll down, and we're going to grab begin and end overlap again. So if the character is overlapping an actor, then we are able to pick it up. So we're going to make sure that that's working as well. First of all, we're going to grab a has authority node in here. So I want only the server to call the interface, and that way all the logic that executes behind the interface will also run on the server. So the server will run all of our pickup logic. If we have that in place, we want to check if this actor implements an interface. So let's do that. Let's copy this stuff over here, connect it to the authority pin, and plug this one into our other actor. Then, if that's good to go, we want to know if this pickup is auto loot or not. So let's drag off here and call our interface function is auto pickup and plug it in over here. So then we need another branch to determine if it's actually automatically picked up or that we need to interact with it. So what we're going to do for this branch, if it's true, we can simply call our interact with actor function. So that's also our interface function. So let's call that interact with actor. And we need to plug in our player character, and that's a reference to ourselves. And the other actor comes from the overlap event, so we can grab it from here. And if the auto pickup is false, then we're simply going to set this actor as our interactable actor. So we're going to drag off the other actor and promote it to a variable. And that's our interactable actor. So that's simply an actor, that's fine. And we don't need to replicate it because we just decided that only the server is going to use it. So this should be good to go. Then for the end overlap event, we can first, let's grab the hasAuthority node again, so we're only on the server. And then we can simply compare the other actor to our interactable actor. So let's drag off the other actor equals our interactable actor. And if that's the actor that actually stopped overlapping, then we're simply going to set our interactable actor back to nothing. So we can drag in the interactable actor again, plug it into the authority and make sure that we clear it, so there's nothing left in there. And that should be good as well. Okay, we do need a branch in here, obviously. Excuse me. So let's grab a branch here, plug that into the authority pin. And if this is true, then we're going to clear our interactable actor. So that should be better. Then we're going to grab our input event that we just created. So input interaction. So action event interact. And as I mentioned a little while ago, we want the server to interact with our actors. And this is an input event, so this will execute locally. The local player is the only one that has a keyboard. So we need to make sure that this will be replicated to the server. So let's grab a custom event. And let's call this server interact with actor. So this event is going to be replicated to run on server. And then from here we want to check if we actually have an interactable actor set. So we're going to drag in our interactable actor and do an isValid check. And if our interactable actor is valid, so we actually have one set up, then we're going to call our interact with actor interface. So we can simply drag off the actor again and interact with actor. So connect this one to the valid pin and make sure we grab a reference to ourselves for the player character. And then all we want to do for the input action interact is call our server interact with actor. So if we are already the server, we can call this replicated event as well. That will still execute, and for the clients it will replicate to the server. So that should be good to go. So we have the basics in our character setup. Let's go to the in-game HUD and let's set up the hint on the HUD. So let's compile and save this, and let's go to our widgets folder. So we need our in-game HUD. And in here I'm simply going to add a border with some text. So I'm going to grab a border and put it a little bit to the right of the crosshair, a little bit higher, but that's all up to you where you want to place it. So let's make this border black and almost transparent. Then I'm going to rename it. So that's my border interactable hint. Interactable hint, and make sure that this border is a variable, and then we're gonna drop some text inside of the border. No, inside of the border, thank you. So the text is going to be our text interactable hint, and that also needs to be a variable, so make sure you enable that. Now let me grab the font over here quickly, so copy and paste it. And I am going to keep the text white, so it stands out a little bit better in a level instead of this light blue color. So this should pretty much do. Then I'm going to grab the border and make sure that it's size to content. And for the anchors, I'm going to anchor it to the center of the screen. So if you want something like a little icon in front of here, you can wrap the text in a horizontal box and then drop an image inside of the horizontal box as well. And then you can have a little hand icon or something in front of the text if you would like. So this is set up and good to go. Then we can go into the graph and we need to add one function to make sure that we can use it. So let's create a new function and call it our setInteractableHint. And we're going to give this one two inputs. So the first one is the new visibility, and that's a boolean. And then for the second one is our hint text, and that's a text variable. So turn this one into text. So first of all, let's grab a branch and check if we want to hide or show it. So if we want to show it, we can grab our border interactable hint and we're going to set the visibility. So in this case, it's visible, and then we can simply copy and paste it, and over here it's hidden. And then we want to grab in our text interactable hint, and we're going to set the text. And then we can simply grab the text from the input node, and this function is done. So that's good to go as well. Then, because this is a HUD, we need to make sure that we can grab a local player controller to actually call this. So we need to go into our framework folder and open our shooter player controller. And in here we're going to create one replicated event to run on the server. So let's create one over here, custom event. And that's going to be a HUD set interact hint. So HUD set interact hint. So this needs to be replicated to run on the owning client because we want to call our HUD in here. And then we can simply grab our in-game HUD and call our new function. So that's set interactable hint. And we're going to plug in the variables as inputs. So we're going to simply drop them onto the event and pass them on. So we have this one set up as well. And then we can go back into our character to make some final updates to the event graph. So let's go back to our hero base character. And over here we have the overlap events for the mesh. So at the end we set our interactable actor, and then we want to decide if we want to show the hint on our HUD. So there we go. So we're gonna drag off our interactable actor again, or we can actually grab the variable, that works as well. And we need to call our interface function getInteractHint text. So getInteractHint text. And this will also return a boolean if we actually want to use it or not. So we're gonna grab a branch first and make sure that we actually want this hint on screen. And if we do, we can call our replicated event on the player controller. So we're going to grab our shooter player controller and then call our HUD set interact hint. And plug this one into the true pin. So if this is true, in this case we want to show our hint, and we can grab the hint text from the interface function and plug it in over here. So that should work. And then for the end overlap, all we want to do is copy this node over here. So we're going to set our interact hint back to hidden, paste it over here, make sure it's not visible, and then that should be good to go as well. So I think we have all of that stuff set up. So now we can take a look at setting up our actual pickup. So if you followed any of my other tutorials, you probably know that I'm quite fond of using structs and data tables. So again, we're going to use a structure and a data table to make sure that we can easily set up different pickups in the level. So first of all, let's go to the gameplay folder, and I'm going to create a new folder in here and call this something like loot, and open it up. In here, let's create the new structure. So let's go to blueprints, structure, and let's call this s_pickup info. So if you're following the inventory series, you already have this structure, but there will be a few new variables in here, so you might want to open it up and make sure that everything is in there. So the first thing we're going to add is our pickup name, and that's a text variable, not a vector. There we go. Then we need a pickup mesh, and that's a static mesh. Oh really? Pickup mesh, and that's going to be our static mesh. Then we're also going to create a pickup mesh skeletal in case we want to add a pickup with a skeletal mesh like one of our weapons. So let's create a pickup mesh and then skeletal. So this needs to be a skeletal mesh. And then we want to add a pickup mesh scale, so we can scale the mesh down if we want, or up. So pickup mesh scale, and we're simply going to use a float for this. The next thing we need is the show pickup name boolean. So let's create a new variable, show pickup name, and that's a boolean. Then we need our interactable, let's add a pickup mesh offset first. So add variable, pickup mesh offset. So in case we want to move the mesh around, so let's create a vector for that. Then we're going to add our interactable hint. So interactable hint, and that's a text variable. And with that we also want to create a boolean, so that's show interactable hint. And turn this one into a boolean. Then we need one more boolean, and that's is auto pickup. So that determines if this pickup will be picked up automatically if we walk over it, or that we need to interact with it. So this is our structure. Why is this all zeros? That's a bit weird, isn't it? Okay, I'm gonna get rid of the defaults here. I'm not sure how they got there, but whatever. So we have our pickup info structure done. Now let's create a data table that goes with it. So miscellaneous and then data table. We need to select our pickup info structure, and I'm gonna call this my pickup info table. And for now, I'm just going to add one, and that's for our assault rifle. So let's add one row in here. And I'm going to call this row the rifle. So for the pickup name, this is going to be the assault rifle. Then we need a pickup mesh, and in this case, it's a skeletal mesh. So we're going to use search for the rifle mesh. There we go. Pickup mesh scale, I'm going to set it to 1. Show pickup name, yes, I want a name displayed above it, so I'm going to enable it. Pickup mesh offset, I want to offset it by 30 units up in the sky, so it's floating a bit above the ground. Then for the interact hint, I'm going to say pickup assault rifle. And show interactable hint, yes, I want a hint on my HUD if I'm overlapping this, so I'm going to enable it. And the auto pickup, I'm going to leave it to false. We can go back in and test later if it actually works with auto pickup as well. So that's done. You might want to go into your pickup structure and make sure that you set the pickup mesh scale default to 1. So in that case, you don't have to make sure you actually set it to 1 for every item in the data table. So now we have a default of 1, and we can adjust it if we want to. So this is all good to go. Now we can create the pickup. So let's right click and go to blueprint class, and we're going to create a new actor. So let's call it our VP pickup base. And first of all, let's start setting up some components in here. So we're going to add the message. So no, first let's add a proper root. So let's add a scene component, call this root, and drag this onto the default scene root. Then we're going to add a static mesh, and that's our pickup mesh. And we also want to add a skeletal mesh, and that's our pickup mesh skeletal. So I'm going to connect both of them to root. So attach, they don't need to be attached to each other, but both of them just attach them to the root. For both meshes, we want to make sure that we have collision set to no collision. So for the pickup mesh, skeletal default should be good. And for the static mesh, we want to make sure that we change it. So it's block all dynamic, and we're going to change it into no collision. Then we need a trigger. So let's add a sphere collision in here. Select root, add a sphere collision. And this is going to be our trigger. For the trigger, I'm going to increase it a little bit, so 45. And then I want to make sure that down here for the collision settings, we need to generate overlap events. That's enabled by default. And for the presets, we're going to select our pickup profile. So that should be good to go as well. And then we want a widget displayed above this to put the pickup name in front of it in the level. So let's go back into our folder and create a new widget. User interface, widget blueprint, create a user widget, and I'm gonna call this pickup item name widget. So let's open it up, and that's going to be really simple. So we only need to add some text in here. So I'm gonna drag some text over here, and this is going to be the text pickup name. So let's change that first. We want it to be a variable, and then I'm simply going to set the proper font and shrink it down a little bit. So that's fine. Now we want to go into the graph and add one simple event. So let's get rid of this stuff, create a custom event, and I'm going to call this set text pickup name. So set text pickup name, and we need an input for this, and that's the pickup name as a text variable. So input pickup name and turn it into a text variable. Then we can simply drag in our text pickup name and set the text and plug in the input, and that's all we need to do in here. So that's good to go. Save and compile it, and then we can go back into our pickup base, and we're going to select root and add a new component, and that's a widget. So for this widget we could name it, let me double check, pickup widget pickup name. So widget pickup name. With this selected on the right side, for the space we want to set it to screen space, and then for the widget class you want to select the pickup name widget that we created. I think I did create it, didn't I? How did I call? I probably misspelled it. Okay, pickup with KC. There we go. So the widget class, pickup name widget, and then we want to enable draw at desired size. So make sure you tick this little box as well. And by the way, we also want to scroll down and look for rendering and set the visibility flag to false. So by default it's hidden, and we're going to show it only if we want to. Okay, we have our components set up as well. So now we need a few variables. Let's just create those right away to make our lives a little bit easier. So the first one is going to be our pickup row name. And that's a name variable, and for this one we want to make sure that we set it to instance editable and exposed on spawn. And then we need a few more, so let's create a new one, and that's our pickup name, and this is a text variable. Then we're going to add a boolean show pickup name. So this needs to be a bool, and then we're going to add our interactable hint and our show interactable hint boolean and our auto pickup boolean. So we can add 3 more variables. So the last one is auto pickup. That's a boolean. The second to last one is going to be show interactable hint. That's also a boolean, and the one above there is the interactable hint. and this one is a text variable. So those are the variables that we need. Now, by the way, we want to make sure that we go into our class defaults and make sure that we enable replication before I forget. So replicates in the class default, enable the flag. With the variables set up, let's add our interface as well. So then we can go into the class settings and we want to add our BPI interactable actor interface. So with the interface in place, we can start setting up some of the interface functions and events. So let's do that first. Let's grab the isAutoLoad. So that's isAutoPickup. And for this one, we can simply grab our AutoPickup boolean, plug it in, and that's all we need to do. That's good to go. Then let's set up the getInteractHint text as well. So I'm going to grab my example quickly. So first of all, let's make a little bit of room. We're going to grab a branch in here and we're going to check if this is an auto pickup. So if it's auto pickup, we don't really need a hint on our HUD. It doesn't really make sense. So in that case, we're not going to display it. So let's create a new local variable, and that's a local show hint. So that's a boolean. And if it's an auto pickup, then we don't want to show the hint, so we're going to set this to false. And then we're going to grab a second branch and check if we want to show our interactable hint. So let's grab the boolean show interactable hint. If we do not want to show it, we can plug in the false pin to the false setter over here, and otherwise let's set it to true. So plug this into the return node. Make sure that we plug in our local show hint variable, and for the actual text we can simply use the variable, so the interactable hint, and plug it in, and that's good to go as well. Then we have an event in our interface, so that's the event set item name visibility, and we can set that one up as well. So if we double click it, it will create it for us. And in this case we also want to add a branch first. So we want to check if we actually want to show the item name. So we're going to grab our show pickup name boolean. And that tells us if we want a name above this item in the level or not. And if we do, then we can simply set the visibility for our HUD widget. So we can grab the widget pickup name and just set the visibility. Plug this into the true pin, and then we can grab the visibility from the actual event node. And that should be good to go. Then there's one small thing we need to set up for the actual pickup hint, or sorry, the pickup name above the item. So we need begin play for that. And we're going to grab our widget pickup name component. Now this isn't an actual widget, so we need to get the widget from there. So we're going to get the user object. User widget object, and with that we can cast it to our pickup name. So cast to pickup item name widget, and after we did the cast we can call our function on there, so set text pickup name, and we can plug in the variable so we have the correct name displayed above it. Okay, so that's pretty much the biggest setup for the pickup. We do need to go into our construction script and make sure that we actually construct it. So let's drag off here, and first of all I'm going to grab a has authority node, so only the server is going to run this construction script. And then we're going to get a table row name, or table row actually, and we want to get our pickup item info. So for the row name, we can grab the pickup row name from the variables, plug it in over here, and then we can simply set everything. So let's make sure that we grab our, let's grab, I'm kind of confused here. So we're going to grab the structure that came from the data table, and we're going to break the structure. So there we go. And then we can simply use the variables. So first let's set our pickup name, drag in a setter, and simply connect it to the structure. Then we're going to drag off our pickup mesh, and this one is the static mesh. So we're going to compare this, and we want to know if it's not equal to nothing. So we're going to grab a branch and plug everything in. So if our pickup mesh static mesh is empty, then we're probably using a skeletal mesh, and the other way around. So I'm going to check if this is empty or not. If it's not empty, we're going to use a static mesh, and if it's empty, we're going to use the skeletal mesh. So first of all, let's grab true pin, and then we want to grab our pickup mesh, so the normal one, not the skeletal one, and we can simply set the static mesh. So really plug this one into the true pin, and we can grab the mesh from the data table. And then we also want to set the relative scale of the mesh. So drag off the pickup mesh again, set the relative scale 3D, plug it in, and we want to split our struct pin here. So right click, split struct pin, so we can use floats, and we can simply grab the float from the structure and make sure that we plug it into all 3 pins. So that should take care of our scale. And then we have our mesh offset. So again, we're going to drag off the pickup mesh and set a relative location. Connect it up, and for the relative location, grab it from the structure again. So that's good to go. So in case we're using a relative offset, we probably also want to move our widget with the name above it with the same offset. So we're going to do that in the construction script. We're also going to grab our widget pickup name, and for this we're going to add a local offset. And we can plug it in over here and simply grab the offset from the data table again. So that's the vector that's in there, and plug it in, and that's good to go. So we want to do the same thing for our skeletal mesh if our static mesh is empty. So we're going to drag in our pickup mesh skeletal and set a skeletal mesh. So this needs to be connected to the false pin over here. And for the mesh, we can grab the pickup mesh skeletal. Then we can copy the nodes over here. So we want to set the relative scale 3D, relative location. So copy those two, paste them over here, and we can simply grab the variables again from here. Let's do it like this. There we go. And then we can connect this to the local offset node for the pickup name. So that's the same, that doesn't change. So that's good to go as well. And then all we need to do is set a few of our booleans and the last text variable. So let's grab in our show pickup name boolean, and then the interactable hint text, and show interactable hint bool, and is auto pickup bool, and make sure we connect everything up correctly. There we go. And plug this one into the add local offset, and that should set up our complete pickup. There we go. So that's our basic pickup done, and we're going to use this as our parent pickup. So we need to make sure that we plug in our skeletal mesh into the relative scale and also into the relative location, and that should take care of our errors, and it does. So this is actually the parent pickup for all of the pickups that we're going to use, and for a weapon pickup we want to add some custom code so we can add the weapon to our inventory, and that's not something we're doing with every pickup obviously, because we're also going to have other types of pickups. So instead of creating an event graph with like 50 bools in here to make sure that we can handle every different type of pickup, we're simply going to create a child actor of this and make the weapon pickup from that child actor. So let's dive into that. So let's right click on our pickup base, and we're going to create a child blueprint class. So I'm going to call this my BPC blueprint child, and then pickup weapon. And let's open this one up. So it's not going to be too complicated. First of all, we're going to add two variables in here. So the first one is our weapon row name to add. So weapon row name to add. And we want to make sure this is a name variable that's instance editable and exposed on spawn. And we need a second variable in here, and that's our slot to add. And that's an integer. And that's good to go. Then we can simply go into the event graph, and in here we want to set up our interact with actor event. So we can get rid of the rest, we don't need it. And for the interact with actor event, we get our player character in return. So we're going to drag off the character and we're going to get the weapon inventory names. So weapon inventory names. And we want to get the length of this array. So if we have an array with a length of 2, then we have index 0 and 1. So the next index that we can add one is 2. So we can actually use this index over here that returns, or the integer, as the next index. So we're going to set this to our slot to add. So let's grab a setter here, plug it in, and plug in your slot to add. Then we can simply call our server add weapon to inventory on the character. So let's drag off the player character again, and we're going to call server add weapon to inventory. So connect it up. For the slot to add, that's going to be the inventory slot, and then the weapon row name is going to be the weapon row name to add. So let's plug those in. And to make sure that we actually switch to this weapon, we want to call our multicast switch weapon event. That way, if we call that event, it will also play the switch weapon animation, and it will set up all variables so the weapon is good to go. So we can drag off the player again. And in this case, we want to multicast switch weapon. So MC switch weapon. Really? Hero base character, so that should pretty much work. Okay, that's weird. Well, we're gonna call our MC switch weapon event, plug it in over here, and make sure that we grab the slot to add again and plug that one in. So this is a pretty good example why you want to use a variable sometimes if you are working with pure nodes. So this is a pure node over here. It doesn't have any execution pins, and that means that every pin that you will connect to it will make it execute. So if I would not use this variable but simply plug it into the inventory slot over here and then into the switch weapon, so this will actually add an inventory slot, and then if I go here, it will grab the new length of the array, and in that case it will return an index that's not populated. So if you're using pure nodes, you always want to take care that they actually either are stored in local variables or variables, or that they don't screw up everything, because it's pretty easy to miss things like that and you get unexpected behavior and you're wondering why that is. So that can be pretty confusing. So make sure you add a variable for the slot to add, and that way it should work. And all we want to do here is destroy our actor. So we're going to get rid of the pickup after it's picked up. So that's all we need to do in our child blueprint, and now this should pretty much work. So all we need to do is go into our level and add some pickups. So let's go to the map 01 and grab our viewport. So let's put them pretty close to the player spawn. Loot, and we're going to grab our child pickup weapon, and I'm going to, well, let's set one up first. So it's dropped in a level, and then we want to go to the details panel. So over here we have two names that we need to add. The first one is the weapon row name to add, so that's the actual name from the weapon data table. So in my case that's AR. And then we have the pickup row name, and the pickup row name defines how the pickup looks, but it doesn't actually tell what's inside it. So that's our rifle pickup. And I didn't do this on purpose to name them differently, but in a normal case you would probably give them the same name. I made sure to keep different names to make it clear that it's actually a different data table. So the weapon row name to add comes from the weapons folder, and then we have our weapon info table. In here I have my AR, and this is the weapon that I'm adding to my inventory, so I need an actual weapon for that. And for the item, for the pickup row name, we have our pickup data table, and that's the rifle pickup that's in here. So those are the two name variables that are on the pickup. So we can simply duplicate this like 2 or 3 times, so we can test it with a few clients as well. And if we are lucky, this should work. So let's grab a multiplayer game and test it. I'm gonna launch it and get back to you guys. Okay, so the game is loaded, the pickups are in place. Let's see if this is actually working. So let's have a little look. And we kinda need to adjust some stuff. So we need to make sure that our interact hint is hidden by default, and our client cannot see our pickup meshes. So let's see if there's actually a pickup here. There is, so it's probably only the mesh that's not displaying. If we press F, we can pick it up, so that part is working. So I think if we set the replication for the meshes, we should be good to go. So if I come close, I get a name above the item, and I forgot to raise the widget, so it's not actually above the item, so we also want to do that. And as you can see on the client screen, he's not seeing the name, so it's locally only, and that's what we wanted. And we get the pickup hint if we actually overlap the item, and we can pick it up by pressing our interact button. So it's not too bad. There's a few small things we need to take a look at. So this is something new that Unreal is doing. I get invalid simulate options because my directional light apparently has physics enabled. So I'm not sure where they get this logic from, but this is really weird shit. So my directional light arrow component, my player start sprite simulate physics. Okay. Well, I didn't set those to simulate physics, but I'll probably have to delete them and re-add them or something. But at least it's not something related to our pickups, so let's ignore that for now. What did we need to do? We needed to go into our widget in-game HUD, and in here we're going to grab our interactable hint border, and we want to set this to be hidden by default. So that should take care of the hint. Then let's dive into the actual pickup. So gameplay loot, pickup base. Do not change the child pickup, but make the changes in your base pickup. So first of all, I'm going to grab the widget pickup name, and I'm going to raise it above the item, so it's not actually inside the item. Then we want to grab our pickup mesh skeletal and scroll all the way down. So we're going to enable component replication, and we're also going to enable component replication on the pickup mesh. And we probably also need to replicate our pickup name. So select the pickup name, replication replicated. And the reason for that is we are setting the pickup name in event begin play. So this actually executes on all instances of the pickup, and our construction script only runs on the server. So we need to make sure that we replicate our pickup name to the other instances, and all other logic executes on the server. So in that case, we do not need to replicate it to other instances because only the server needs to know them. So the meshes, we have the variable and we have the HUD. So I think we should be good to go. So by the way, I disconnected the wave spawning event in the game mode to make sure that I don't get beat up while we're testing this. So I'm going to launch the game again and see how this works. See you in a few seconds. So back in game, I made this a 3-player match, and let's see if everything is working for server and client. Okay, so nothing really changed. And that's really annoying because we did actually change a whole bunch of stuff. So I already encountered the same stuff yesterday, having some issues with this. And it turned out I had to remove the pickups from my level Oh, really? And re-add them, and in the end I actually had to close down the editor and relaunch it before everything worked, and I didn't make any other changes. So pretty weird, but I'll get back to you in a second to make sure everything is working. Okay, I'm actually having the same issues I had yesterday, so for some reason it's not replicating the meshes from the pickups. And I'm gonna get into it and find out why that is. I probably forgot something somewhere, although I'm not really sure what. And a few minutes ago when I wasn't recording, it did actually work, and I reverted my changes so I could record what I changed, and after that it stopped working again. So what we're gonna do is we're simply gonna go into our pickup base, and we're gonna disconnect our switch has authority node in the construction script right now. So that means that all instances will set up the pickups for themselves. And if in the next episode I found out what's wrong, then I will get back to this and we're gonna fix it. So for now we actually have working pickups. So let's start a 3-player game, and I'm gonna show you everything works the way it should. So let's host one, and we're gonna add 2 clients. There we go. Now we need to make sure that we only have one weapon. So let's go to the weapon selection, and I'm going to remove my primaries. So we simply press equip, and it equips an empty slot, and do that for both of the primary slots. So we only have a pistol right now, and I'm not sure if that actually saves for the clients. So let's do it for the client as well. And then the primary slots for the other client. So we have everything cleared. We're only starting with a pistol. And now everything should be in the map. So I'm spawning inside this rock. So we have a bunch of pickups here. If I walk towards it, we get the pickup name. You will see on the other screens there is no pickup name, so that's only locally. That's working, and right now I can switch weapons, but I only have a pistol. So if I pick this one up, and then I have my assault rifle added as well, and I can switch back to my pistol. So all of that is working on the client side. Now let's grab the server. So the pickup name is working. If I get closer, the pickup interact hint is also working, and I can pick it up. And then I have 2 weapons in my inventory. So the pickup is working, and we're adding it to our weapon inventory in the level. Oh, freaking. Now, you do need to keep in mind that we set up 2 different structures in our player. So if we go to the player save game, we have the weapon loadout and the weapon inventory. So the weapon loadout are the weapons you choose in the loadout menu to spawn the level with, and those will not save. And the weapon inventory would normally be all the weapons that you have in your inventory to choose from. But because we didn't actually set up looting and weapon inventories and earning weapons or buying weapons in the level, what we did in our loadout menu was simply grab all of the rows from the weapon data table and add those to the menu. So let's see, we have our event graph, and over here we're updating our weapon info. Let me see, update loadout character. No, that's not correct. Oh, really? So update weapon info. And over here, no. Oh, really? Create inventory buttons, that's the one. There we go. So in here we're loading the loadout from the menu controller, store it in a local variable, but we're not actually using it. And this should be the inventory, by the way, not the loadout. But over here we're grabbing simply all of the rows in our data table, and we're adding 1 weapon of each that's in our data table that we can choose from in the loadout menu. So right now, if we pick up a weapon in the level from our rifle pickup, for example, that will not save in our inventory. So we will not have it in our inventory the next time we load the level, if we set everything up properly. So we're gonna get back to saving that stuff, setting up a weapon inventory, setting up weapon loadout, etc. So for now, we simply have a pickup in the level. We can pick it up, it gets added to our current inventory, but nothing will save. So that's what I wanted to make clear. So finally, I think we have this episode done as well. I'm not sure what's wrong. It could be with the child blueprint. There's something why it's not updating. I'm not sure, but I'm gonna dive into it, and next episode I'm gonna let you guys know. So for now, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please consider leaving a like, and I'll be back soon for more. Talk to you later, guys. Bye bye.